I love this view.
Absolutely incredible. And the contract looks perfect.
Let's do it.
We're buying it.
Yes.
I can't believe it's ours.
It's perfect. Now to find the right tenants.
I know, I'm so excited.
I'm calling about the damages at my property.
Let them know about the wall.
Yes, the wall is cracked, there's paint everywhere, and the furniture is broken. This is a claim.
We need this fixed now.
When you hear the phrase passive income, you probably picture kicking back on a beach while rent checks just magically appear in your bank account. But the reality of residential real estate is looking more and more like a grueling second full-time job. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah, glad to be here for this one. It is definitely a huge reality check.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're looking at a giant stack of macroeconomic data, some legal statutes, and industry reports to really figure out why independent landlording, which is, something you might be considering as a side gig, is transforming into a high-risk, heavily regulated enterprise.
Right, because if you look at the data we've gathered, that whole myth of passive wealth completely falls apart.
It really does. I mean, the reality is that managing just one single unit demands like 48 to 96 hours of intense, grueling oversight every single year.
And that time commitment spikes dramatically the second the financial relationship fractures.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is, it's the underlying systemic driver of those fractures. It is rooted in the profound economic fragility of the American renter.
Oh, wow. Okay. How fragile are we talking?
Well, lower-income tenants often have just, $310 left over each month after paying for housing.
I mean, $310 is a razor-thin margin, sure. But how do we go from someone struggling to pay their rent to the wild property damage we see in these reports?
Right.
That feels like a massive leap, right? From financial hardship to outright malice.
Yeah, I get that. But the leap happens because losing shelter is essentially an existential crisis.
Yeah.
A single flat tire or, a medical bill wipes out that $310, triggering a default.
Right, of course.
So suddenly the property owner becomes this involuntary zero-interest creditor. The power dynamic shifts entirely, panic sets in, and that fear frequently morphs into incredibly hostile retaliation against the physical property itself.
Which brings us to the totally bizarre details in these reports. I mean, people treat real estate like a safe mutual fund, but you can't pour concrete down the plumbing of a mutual fund.
No, you definitely cannot do that.
But we have documented cases of tenants doing exactly that, like $5 of quick-dry concrete in a toilet causing tens of thousands in damage, or tenants drilling professional stripper poles into historic 1810 hardwood floor.
Oh my gosh, yes. And even digging voyeuristic tunnels through drop ceilings to spy on neighbors. It's wild.
Unbelievable. But even if you manage to avoid a tenant who retaliates, you might end up facing a severe threat from someone you never even signed a lease with. Unauthorized occupancy, or squatting, is exposing a complete paralysis of the legal system.
Exactly. It is a massive vulnerability right now.
There is this harrowing story from Salt Lake City in our notes that perfectly illustrates this. A 7-month pregnant woman comes home with her toddler to find a complete stranger sitting on her couch, wearing her clothes, claiming residency. If someone breaks into your property, why can't the police just remove them immediately?
Well, it comes down to the civil matter loophole. Squatters present these highly convincing fake internet leases to the responding officers.
Wait, really? Fake leases?
Yeah, all the time. And without a centralized, real-time database to verify the lease on the spot, police are basically forced to step back. They tell the owner it is a civil issue, which pushes them into a labyrinthine eviction process, costing anywhere from $3,500 to $10,000.
Wow. And looking at the source data surrounding these legal battles, there is a real duality here with new right to counsel, or RTC, laws.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, we're just reporting what the sources say here, but on one hand, these laws are doing exactly what they were designed to do, which is providing free legal representation and keeping vulnerable people from being displaced. But the flip side of the data shows this massively inflates the landlord's legal costs and the timeline to regain their property.
Right. And to protect themselves from those inflated timelines, landlords are reacting by enforcing much stricter screening requirements, which creates a tragic irony, honestly.
How so?
Well, those stricter standards end up locking out the exact marginalized renters these RTC laws were initially designed to help.
That makes sense. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Facing backlogged courts and these compounding costs, property owners are rationally choosing to bypass the justice system entirely. They're using a strategy called cash for keys.
So what does this all mean? The math is just utterly ruthless. Let's say a tenant stops paying. Handing them $2,000 to leave voluntarily in 7 days is vastly cheaper than paying an attorney $5,000 for a 6-month eviction process.
Where you collect zero rent and risk the property being gutted, right?
It is all about mitigating the disaster.
Paying someone who broke a contract to leave your own house feels completely counterintuitive. But, if you're trying to survive in this business, it is just a pragmatic calculation.
Survival today also requires a massive defensive infrastructure. To combat those fake internet leases we talked about, landlords are forced to adopt enterprise prop tech.
Right, the advanced software stuff.
Yeah, software that verifies identities and financial histories in real time. They are also buying specialized vandalism insurance and rent guarantee policies. But paying for that tech and insurance takes a staggering 17% bite out of their profit margins.
Wow. Taking a 17% haircut right off the top before you even factor in like a leaky roof or an empty month.
It changes the math completely.
So if that mutual fund we talked about suddenly required you to hire a legal team, buy vandalism insurance, use advanced biometric screening software, and occasionally pay off someone just to get your shares back, well, you would probably pull your money out.
I know, I definitely would.
Which leaves you with a massive unresolved question. If independent, accidental landlords can no longer afford these massive legal and financial risks, does that mean the future of American housing will be entirely controlled by a few massive, faceless institutional corporations? Something to mull over the next time you see a for rent sign in your neighborhood.